Yeah, you don't need the actual.
I figure if I get enough
No?
No.
Well, then I could pick on you for a minute.
All right. All right, everyone, let's call the meeting to order. Let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Amen. Thank you so much. Roll call, please.
President Monge,
Here?
Vice President Matthews,
Here.
Treasurer Bramscher,
Here.
Council Representative McKenzie.
Here.
Absent today are Member Nath, Member Gagliardi, and Member Gogra. Staff and ex-officio members present today are Executive Director Frandle, Community Development Director Roberts, EDA Secretary Cherne, and Finance Director Winnick.
Thank you so much. Appreciate that. May I have a motion to adopt the agenda, please?
So moved.
So moved. Council, Member McKenzie?
Second.
Second. Member Matthews? That's not easy. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much. We will have a presentation, but poor Andrew probably is stuck somewhere with the snow, so we can wait till the end of that if he does show up.
Yeah, you say just a nice thank you to him. I sent
Yep.
him an email, but yeah, it'd be nice to.
Great. All right.
So, we'll move on to, meeting open to the public.
Yep. Do we have to adopt we don't have to do the approval of minutes or other stuff
I
anymore?
thought you just did that. I apologize. What?
Did I do that?
Yeah, you did.
I did the adopt, was that the whole
Yes.
agenda then? All right. Meeting, nobody's here in public? Nobody's crazy enough to go out in this?
He didn't do that? Did you do the approval of the minutes on that though?
No.
Oh.
That's what I said.
I apologize.
And I have a motion to approve the minutes from the last meeting, September 9th.
So moved.
So moved. Councilmember McKenzie, or Member McKenzie?
Second.
Second. Member Matthews. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Nobody's here for the public. On we go.
So we have two items on action items, and the first item is item A for EDA and city budget overview. We have Dan Winnick, our finance director, here to discuss.
Don't they work?
Just talk.
They still does work for the people, so yes, please.
Oh, okay. President, council members, commission members, want to go over the 2026 budget and levy overview. So Brian, the city manager, had asked me if I would come here tonight and kind of present and kind of give everybody up to speed of where we're at with the 2026 budget, which will be approved next Tuesday. Kind of give an overview of that. The last time I was here on September 9th, we kind of just focused on the EDA. But I think Brian was spot on. It's really important that the EDA understands what the city is doing, where we're at, some of the difficulties that we have, some of the, based upon the needs and the planning that we've done. But it's going to cost. It's going to cost our residents through the property tax system. And so I want everybody to be aware of that, especially because, in the EDA, and you're looking at, potentially of maintaining and holding businesses, and in addition to attracting new businesses in the city, which, again, they pay property taxes. So we want everybody to be on the same page. So I'm just going to kind of walk you through this. You can stop me at any time and ask any questions. And really what I'm trying to do is to kind of get this group's overall feeling of, are we on the right track? What are some things that we should be looking at maybe a little bit differently? Any input that you have that can help us out as we move forward. We're pretty much set on the 2026 budget. This last Tuesday we had the Truth in Taxation. It was attended just by less than a handful of individuals. I had a few phone calls from residents that had concerns about their property taxes, but that's been basically about it as far as feedback from the residents. So we're really trying to get more information, and I think it's very important to hit this group and to get, and then I'll show you at the end where your EDA is currently in a financial information, presently for the budget, what you have, fund balance, and so forth. So tonight we're going to go over the general fund budget, take a quick look at the 26 to 35 capital improvement plan. We're going to look at what we have for proposed levy, what that is as a tax impact, preliminary market values, and then we'll have the EDA current financial information and the EDA preliminary 2026 budget, which you approved in September 9th. And then open it up for a discussion. But again, you can stop me at any point in time if you need clarification or you have some thoughts or insights. They're totally welcome. So in our general fund, from a revenue standpoint, you can see that almost 58% of our revenue comes from property taxes. That's the orange section there. That's the ad valorem taxes. And then the next component that is big is the yellow slice over there. That's a little over 21%, which is intergovernmental. So the intergovernmental, the biggest component to that is local government aid that comes from the state of Minnesota. In our budget discussions, we had talked about, some of the projections that were out there as far as the state of Minnesota's biennium for 2028, 2029. I think the latest one that I'd seen came from the state auditor's office, and they're looking like this year they're going to be a surplus, I think of about $2.8 billion. But they're looking at by 28, 29 that there's a $3 billion deficit. So now how do they go in through legislation and kind of balance that out so they don't have another big hit, as far as cutting funding for different programs. That's where we're exposed to. If they were to cut some of that LGA money, that would have a direct impact on us. We would end up having to, if we were going to keep service levels the same, we would end up having to generate and raise our levies up even higher than what you're going to end up seeing here.
And those, can you explain what that is? Because I was kind of interested when you explained it to us about how some cities give, some cities receive as far as the.
I think what you're referring to is fiscal disparities.
Yeah. Oh, that wasn't part of it?
Yeah, no, the fiscal disparities. So the fiscal disparities pool, so what we actually levy isn't necessarily the exact amount that's going to end up coming from our taxpayers. So I believe in 1971, they established fiscal disparities, which is basically the metro area, and it's the commercial growth. And so they took a base of 1971, and what they were trying to look at is that a city doesn't have the power to say, hey, a highway's going through right here. That's a bigger metro area, Met Council decision. But what does it have? It has a great impact on what commerce is going to do. Commercial buildings attracting. So the commercial property can benefit, industrial property can benefit greatly from where a new highway is located. And so what they tried to do was take a base and then whatever growth is in, they have a calculation for every growth in between it. So we put a part of our commercial property, you contribute in value. And then they do this calculation, and then you get a fiscal disparities value distribution back. You multiply that by the prior year's tax rate, and that becomes real dollars. So right now, if we levy, we'll see the exact amount, but if we levy $7 million, our fiscal disparities is about 1.3. Which means that our taxpayers are actually only paying for 5.7 of that levy. Fiscal disparities is from the metro area is redistributing some of that benefit that of commercial growth. Obviously, we haven't had a lot of commercial growth, so we're considered a winner in the fiscal disparities pool. And so that's where there is a balance between. I didn't put any in here, but I've shown the city council some charts. And back in 2021, because of COVID, city council made a decision and passed a 0% levy. What that ended up doing, because market values had gone up, it actually dropped our tax rate down. So it kept it at 0%, but in the next year, you actually lost some fiscal disparity dollars, and so you actually had an impact on taxpayers right off of the get-go. If the city would have done another 0% levy, and let's just say all market values stayed exactly the same, taxpayers still would have paid more because there was a loss in fiscal disparity dollars. And so we've been trying to look at things from that standpoint of when we raise the levy, we want to try to make sure that we're kind of in that average of what other cities are doing. And that's why there is a slide here that kind of shows you where the average is of Ramsey County cities and what they've levied. And so for the past 5 years, we've kept ourselves pretty much in that middle. We're not on the high end. You'll see some outliers. I think this year, the highest is maybe 16 to 18% levy increase. But then there's some lower ones that may have a 3% levy increase. We've kept kind of more of that middle ground levy or road to be able to also protect the fiscal disparities, which has incrementally increased in the past 5 years.
So it's like a 1-2 punch.
It's like a 1-2 punch, right? If we reduce it below that average and we get that, kind of that hit unintended consequence of the fiscal disparities, we could end up having another added impact on our taxpayers. And at the end of the day, I always look at it and recommend, and our city manager gives the direction to all of the staff when we're looking at it, is that, we build a budget based upon our needs. And you're going to see some of our needs. And one of the biggest pieces that you're going to see is that our levy is being driven by our infrastructural needs in this city. And so we'll kind of go through that. But you can see that if you take those two groupings, we have, 78% is dependent on, intergovernmental revenue, which is from the state, and property taxes. So we have a heavy reliance on that. If we look at our expenditures in the general fund, you're going to see that, our personnel costs are 69%, by far the biggest component of our expenditures. If we look at those expenditures by department, you're going to see that the police department, total expenditures makes up about 47% of our general fund, and our fire and code enforcement is just, below 16%. So if we look at those, those two together, you're looking at 63% of our general fund is for public safety. So there really isn't a great deal that's going to other components onto it. And if you look at the next biggest after fire and code enforcement, it's street maintenance, which again makes sense. Those are your basic services that are in any municipality. So right there, you're already looking at 3/4 of your budget is between three departments that are critically needed within the city. So again, not a lot of room to find things that you can end up cutting and trying to get yourself down. You can look at that. Our park system, if you look at parks and recreation, you've got a total of $550,000 out of our budget that goes to general parks and recreation. If you look at comparison to other cities, that's a very, very low number that's in there. And just take a quick look at our 26 to 2035 CIP. So what we've adopted is that we try to do a 10-year plan on our capital improvement plan. All of the department heads submit requests. They put it into the plan. We still have some adjustments to make as far as cash flow issues that need to be addressed in some of these. I'm showing you as funding sources. And I didn't give you all of the breakdown of everything that's in there. But you can look at it after 10 years, we're talking, a little over $100 million worth of needs. Your biggest components to it are, your streets, facilities, and And then the next big component to it, which is related to streets in a large part, are your utilities, where you see some needs of the water, with the exception of the water tower, which is about $5 million of their total 12. But the remainder of that, in a large part of it, is due to, if we do a major street reconstruction, which we have been having scheduled every other year, that also impacts wastewater, and that also impacts surface water. And then
putting that,
I'm sorry?
are you putting that under the asset preservation fund?
No. The asset preservation fund is used for facility maintenance.
Okay.
And, if you look at
Like 2031 I'm looking at. Dan.
roofs.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's kind of what I was
You're
kind
going to jump to? Yeah, absolutely. You're spot on. And if you look at the age of our facilities, I mean, there's been, discussion publicly about the community center. Well, the community center's not too far off of the age of this facility we're sitting in, or our public works facility. So we're looking at facilities that are all that 20-plus years. Usually HVAC systems are 20 to 25 years useful life. You're looking at roofs, depending on where they're at, they can be 25 to 30 years. And that's where you're seeing that 2031, they're hitting that time period where, there's going to end up being a roof replacement. If you look at that public works itself, that's a $3.5 million job.
Yep.
So that's where there's some big costs. And those, if you just take those two facilities, being the public works and the city hall, you need those facilities to be able to house your assets of your vehicles and to be able to perform your functions within the city.
Well, I think lesson to be learned too with the community center is negligence can cost you more money in the long run. So, this is important, outlining a lot of this stuff, and I hope moving forward, we learn from those mistakes. It's a big thing.
We've
It's a
had,
huthing thing.
Absolutely.
we started that a couple years ago. We got
Yeah.
the funds now that we're working on, and Ryan have done a great job of, we're thinking about them now.
And that's where the first part to it is, when I stepped into this role here, there really wasn't a comprehensive capital plan.
Yeah.
There was, a vehicle replacement cycle. Obviously, street maintenance was looked at, on a 5-year basis, because you need to do that when you go out for a bond issuance as far as streets are concerned. But we've added some other components, within the street program that were being ignored before. And what we changed is, with the help of our engineer, WSB, is to look at what is our road rating in our city. And so we've instituted outside of that, every other year. So how it was working was just every other year that we would go out and bond and do a major reconstruction. We've also now, on that opposite year when we're not bonding, we've added in we call it a pavement preservation, which can be a mill and overlay. It can be a spot replacement of infrastructure, of water and wastewater and surface water, in addition to that. And so our plan has that on the street portion about $2 million. And then with the water, wastewater, and surface water, it comes to approximately, somewhere in the ballpark of a little over $3 million. What we're trying to do over time, and it is an impact that to our residents. But what we're trying to do is, one of the components that I had shared with City Council was that a lot of people compare this city because of I think size and then population will compare us to Moundsview. And so I pulled up some information and kind of asked some questions for City Council, and I shared with what Moundsview's debt is. And then, what do you think our debt is? And our debt is 4 to 5 times higher than what Moundsview is. Well, you're all aware, if you have debt, that means I'm paying interest onto it. And as a rule of thumb, I always just use, if I were to to borrow $1 million at 5% interest for 20 years. That's going to cost me $80,000 a year. Well, over 20 years, then it means that $1 million cost me $1.6 million. And so we're losing some purchasing power by doing that. And so what we're trying to do with this overall plan, and it requires to raise the levy, and you'll see where we're looking at, or what that means, as far as the levy is concerned, is that we're trying to move ourselves to more of a cash basis. So we're not having that heavy debt. But again, it's all, the basis of it all is what's your needs? And we have some huge infrastructural needs that, like you stated, have been ignored.
Yep.
And so what did we learn from that? So that's where we're trying to shift ourselves and make sure that we're planning for things and we're putting money aside to be able to handle those instead of, letting something get to a point where, it's not cost effective, or you're going to end up having to rip it down and build something brand new, which is going to cost you, twice as much.
And how are we handling, like the 10-year plan of having the opportunity to pay down debt?
So what I built in with the street plan, both the pavement preservation, with the major reconstruction, and then they have some annual things that they do. I combined all of those with our debt, and I have it projected, even though our debt may go up, I have it projected as that is a straight cost.
Got it.
So in other words, if our debt goes up, then we contribute a little bit less in cash to the street program. But the street program, if we continue to levy, what you'll end up seeing will pay for all of this related to the street reconstruction, the debt, everything, with that as time moves on.
Thank you.
In the last couple of years, we've got our house in order where we got a AA, went from AA to AA plus bond rating, which is huge.
Well, that was going to be, and, the past, it's also affected, I know, the bond stuff, it had to have.
So now, first time ever.
And that's not a good spot to be in when it's harder to negotiate bond stuff. That's not a good position to be in. So, sorry to interrupt you.
No, you're making very good points, and yes, it's the support of city council with these plans, and our city manager that we changed our fund balance policy to be more in line with what the state auditors recommend, and it makes sense, and it was at 35%, we've moved it to 50%, and when you just stop and think about for the general fund, the dynamics of it is that property taxes are due in May and October. You saw we got a 57% dependency on property taxes. So that means we don't actually get any money in a year. The first allotment is in June. And then the next one we just received towards the end of the year. So June, because it'll come into about the middle, towards the middle to the end of June, 6 months. So 6 months is 50% of your budget. So you should be having a fund balance to be able to carry yourself through that component to it, so you're not running negative or having to borrow from another fund. And we've achieved that. Last year, at the end of the year, we hit over that 50%. Brian and I have made a commitment to the bond council that we will maintain that moving forward as we go out for the every other year bond issuance. So we're trying hard to make sure that we can do that. But this is a lot of money, and it's really your driving factor on the levy itself. And this is kind of what it means. To the impact of this capital plan is that street debt that we need to have an annual increase of $248,000, which is a 3.2% levy increase. To fund parks, we need to have a levy increase, or we have to have a levy of about 1%. And for asset preservation or facilities, it's about 1.8%. You add those together for this year, and it came out to 6.01% levy. So you get a 6% levy increase right off the beginning just to be able to fund this capital improvement plan itself. So what we have proposed, and I believe that City Council will approve next Tuesday, is 8%. So all we did, you know, for all of those other services, the police, the fire, the streets, everything that you saw in that pie chart, actually went up 2%. That's pretty good when you think of the cost of livings, step increases for personnel, and you remember personnel was a big part of our expenditure, 67%. Our department heads have, underneath Brian's direction, have done one heck of a great job of cutting and tightening, you know, the operational costs as much as possible. And this wasn't their first year. They've been doing that for the past 3 years, you know, tightening it and tightening it.
About 1% increase in the levy brings in, what, 74?
Yeah.
78?
And
Go ahead, sorry.
I've gotten, you know, phone calls. We have so many more people now, you know, that live in North St. Paul. Why aren't my taxes going down? Because of all the new, well, we have TIF. So it's going to take about 20 years before we can realize that too. So there's a lot of stuff that was paid up forward that now we just have to hold on until we get that.
Never, with scenarios, you're never gonna feel an impact right away.
Correct.
It's just never gonna, it's never gonna happen. It's a 5-year, it's a 10-year, 15, 20-year. But I think one of the scenarios, and people need to understand this, is we can't go backwards.
Nope.
Because we're gonna end up costing so much more money in the long run going backwards. People need to understand that. I understand when we talk about levies, when we talk about tax increase, it's the same thing with the community center. It's got to be outlined of why it's not fiscally responsible to go in that route, and let people see it visually.
Yeah, I think we've done a much better job of laying it out.
No question.
Over the,
No question.
You know, it also, you know, to be able to afford this capital improvement plan, it also will you know, have an impact on our rates that we charge for water, wastewater, surface water, you know, and so forth. Right now, and again, these get adjusted every year based upon how we perform in our, you know, at the end of the year. But we're looking somewhere at about a 6%, you know, increase on those rates. For 2026, we have no rate increases. We just have the 8% levy, and it's not just 8% levy, but that's kind of, you know, where we're at. We had a workshop with City Council to make sure that, are you comfortable of being at that 8 to 10% each year, knowing that you have this capital improvement plan that's costing you 6% on an annual basis? And there seemed to be support to keep moving towards that. Now, that can all change, but that's kind of where we're at right now at this present moment. And so that's definitely something we'll be looking at, and it gets adjusted depending on how we perform. How we perform in our enterprise funds, how we perform in our general fund. And this gets adjusted absolutely, you know, every single year. The one thing that you're not seeing how we generate this, you know, those increases, is that we do 10-year financial plans. Obviously, there's assumptions that you make, but we do that for every one of our funds to make sure that we believe that we're on track and we're looking. And then, you know, at the end of the year, we look at, okay, how did we perform, you know, based upon against what we projected.
and we've been flexible, like with the cameras for the cops, we moved it to this year. And we had the other one for the locks of the building. So we're able to see where we're at and be able to move things out and forward for needs. So it's been going well, because there was 2 things this year. You know, once it was nice because all of us staff got together with, you know, the council and that, and everybody, the leaders of the staff, and, you know, what it took Jason, he had to go to every single door with the old locks, and anybody leaves or starts, he had to reprogram each individual door throughout the city. Well, think how much effort and time that is. Once you hear what he needed to do, the new system, he does it by a computer. you know, that type of thing. So it's, some of these things just turn into, wow, look at the difference, what we're spending here, to have him go door to door and be able to do that anytime somebody changes, to be able to change on the fly for anything. So that's where we're flexible enough, we're able to move things around, which has been good.
And in that workshop also, then, you know, city council kind of, you know, trying to get to the point where, and I'll describe it as, I got $1 to spend, where would I spend it? You know, if this is where we're saying this is our max, but we have additional needs, how would we go about spending that? And so city council, you know, is more kind of giving staff direction of how to look at that as we prepare our capital improvement plans and looking at that. So it was very beneficial for myself, for staff.
That was the first year we did that, was having the staff with the council. Usually we do our meetings, so we open it up to all the leaders as far as the city's, you know, supervisor, everybody else. So, and then we're gonna keep doing that, because that was so beneficial, because we're able to hear and be able to understand, we're all in the same room, instead of us, you know, we're only here so often figuring out things. Let's talk to the people that live it day to day, and it was very beneficial. They liked it, and us as council liked it as well. We're able to get together.
Well, it really turned out to be a good partnership too, because it's so important, not just from staff, that you work hand in hand with council. And, you know, good information in and
Yeah.
decisions can be made.
Talking about transparency.
Correct, and it
I
was,
mean, that's what it comes down to, needs and wants. You know, and
it wasn't two groups, and then all of a sudden they try to get to, you know, somebody puts it together and tries to facilitate. We all were together, so it worked out really well.
So this is where we're at with the 26 proposed levy. And you can see the city has a number of components to it. It has the general fund, street maintenance, park, asset preservation. Those are the three funds I kind of talked about, and then our debt payment. Those amount to $8.4 million. HRA staying at $11,000, and EDA staying at the $200,907. Overall, with all three of those levies, it amounts to an 8% levy increase for the residents here in the city. This just shows this is the debt that we're carrying right now in the general fund, and the amount that we have to levy for our payments. And so, you know, we're required to levy 105% of our debt payments, and that's where over a 20-year period that, and if you end up refinancing, that you can end up having funds available or left over in a debt fund. And again, debt fund is really kind of restricted to paying for the debt, and that's where we were able to, and city council was made aware of it on a number of occasions. That's where, when we had the need for body cams and car cams for our police department, I was like, okay, how do we pay for this type of component to it? We had a bond that was, the final payment was in February of this year, and it ended up having, you know, $500,000 left into it. So then it was city council's, you know, decision. We tell the city council about it, and city council made the decision to utilize, you know, a part of that to be able to purchase those cameras. The HRA and EDA levies, again, are being the same. And so I kind of put this graph together because you can see our plan. You know, what you see in the blue is really the beginning of trying to move ourselves for two things. One, to be able to afford that capital improvement plan, and then two, to be moving us into a cash basis to be able to pay for those items. And you can see, you know, since pay 23 all to the current of property taxes that are payable in 2026, you know, that we're now at $1.4 million. If we look at our levy that's, you know, part of the city and the HRA and the EDA, you know, during that same time period, we've gone from about 6.7 to 7.2. So we've raised our levy, you know, I'm not going to say only, but $500,000, although our residents have seen an approximate $2 million levy increase. And that's because most, the majority of it is going towards infrastructure. Call it the streets, the parks, the facilities. And this is the graph that I referenced earlier that kind of talks about where we try to keep ourselves in the middle of the playing field for our proposed levy increase. And you'll see it, Arden Hills had the highest, at the truth and taxation time. Again, things can go down if they vote, for their final. But for truth and taxation, they were at 18.32, where you have Falcon Heights on the low end at 3.88. We're at 8%, and you can see we're just below the middle of the pack. So there's a lot of cities that are in that range of 7.8 to just underneath 10. We're again on the low end of that, as far as a median component to it. I think the overall average and the average is obviously skewed downwards because of St. Paul at 5.3, because St. Paul has, a much bigger levy in comparison to many, if you combine a lot of these cities together. I think the overall average is 7.6% levy increase for all of the cities that are in Ramsey County. We always take a look at, what does that impact? Obviously, this is a snapshot under certain particular assumptions, from our assessor's office. We know that 2.4, about a 2.4% was the increase in our median value home, residential home. If we have that 8% total tax levy, what that's going to amount to for the city, all the city components to it, is 6.75% increase. Now, if your value went up 20%, obviously you're going to be having a much bigger bottom line impact onto it. And this is the city component. When you get your property tax statement, whether it was your truth and taxation statement or whether it's your property tax statement, you're going to end up having a bottom line, but it's also going to be including Ramsey County, the city, the school district, and then I call some others that are in there. The three major ones are all pretty close to about a third of the property tax bill that you see. This next chart kind of shows all of the cities that are in Ramsey County, and that what is the percentage of change that that they would end up seeing. And so, the city of North St. Paul in the middle there, I know it's kind of hard to see, has about 3,800 parcels, and you're going to see from a decrease or a 0% change. And this is aggregate. This isn't just North St. Paul. This is bottom line property tax impact. Would see, about 373 parcels that would meet that, fall within that range, 0 to 10. There would be about, is the majority, and you'd see about, a little under 2,200. And then 10 to 20%, you're going to see 1,000. And then, anything over 20%, you're going to see maybe, a couple hundred residents that are going to see that. The biggest driving factor, again, is that their market value has gone up quite considerably, and which the city has no control over that. That is the county assessor's office that determines a property's value. But kind of want to just kind of talk about, where we're at with market values. I think everybody, after the COVID time, we had some huge increases in market values. Those days are done, and we're seeing it, for payable 26, and we saw it for payable 25. We're seeing very modest overall changes in our market value, and you can see by this, if we look at a median valued home, you can see how it, from 2020 it went from 213 to 310. That 22 to 23 was a huge spike, and now you're seeing it flattening out towards the top. If we look at all of our estimated market value of all of our properties, again, you can see that same tendency and trend that, after you get past that 22 to 23, 3 to 4, it's now, very much flattening out. within the city. And we're not alone. This is what you're seeing in many cities in the metro area. And then just to kind of provide some current EDA financial information, on December 4th, when I ran this for this presentation, you can see that your fund balance is at $615,000 for a fund balance, and you have cash of about $567,000. So you've gone up about $6,200 from the beginning of the year. Actually, if I run this in about a week and a half, you're going to see your second half property taxes being put in there because it's not accounting for that at this point in time. So we'll see another $100,000. So your cash will go up another $100,000 to about $666,000, and you're going to see your fund balance going up to about $709,000 because that is not included in here. Because again, remember, May, October, we don't get the second until December.
And the land that we own is the one next to Burger King.
Correct.
Okay.
And then just kind of shows you the revenue and expenses of where we're at. And nothing's been out of the ordinary at this point in time. Again, your property taxes on the revenue side, you're only showing half of it. Again, in a week and a half from now, we've received the money. We just haven't gotten the settlement report, so I can do all the journal entries. As soon as we get that, that'll be up there, and you'll see that you've have $200,000 versus the $103,000. And then there's some investment income and market value adjustments that are done on an annual or on a monthly basis. So we do journal entries for those, and you can see that. The biggest part of your expenditures is personnel costs. And again, that's where we've, last year, we kind of made a decision that the community development's allocation of time was too high, and we're moving it downwards. So we moved it down this year. We're going to move it down again in 2026, and we'll continue to move it down to what was agreed upon with the Economic Development Authority. And if you remember in the September 9th meeting, we kind of went through what your preliminary budget was for the upcoming year. And again, you can see the personnel costs are going down. Even though that there's been cost of living increases, insurance increases and such, and that's because we're reducing the percentage of allocation going to the Economic Development Authority. Revenues are being projected the same as 2025. Again, the levy, we kept it flat, so you can kind of see where that's it. We really haven't, as you can see from 23 and 24. We've increased our net position. 2022, we had a reduction in our net position, but if you remember, that was in that overall contractual services component to it. We did a loan that went to a local establishment here, and so that's where that was paid out in 2022. So you're seeing that. But in 23, 24, and you're going to see in 25, we haven't spent the whole budget part to it. So we've been increasing our fund balance since 23. And then here you can see where the community development's allocation was at 50%. In 2026, it'll be down to 30%. And I think we agreed to, 20 or 25. I've got notes on that we end up reducing it again. So that's all the information that I have to share, and really kind of looking for your reaction, your thoughts. Are we on the right track? Any insight that you can give would be, very, very much appreciated.
Thank you, Dan, for the presentation.
Thank you very much.
So we've absorbed this is our third time through this for us on the council, but it's good to have business owners, being able to, people that be able, in the business, to be able to look and see where we're at, because, we have this, the EDA part of it is, but the whole city is included. So we want to make sure that, the whole budget's represented, so we all are on the same page, so that was where we're
Appreciate
at.
that.
That's great, yeah.
I really appreciate that. I think the transparency is phenomenal. I appreciate that. I'd find it hard pressed, well, there might be people out there, but there's a lot of maintenance that needs to happen, in the city, and talked about it for years, and having the game plan, sticking to the game plan and executing the game plan, I see it happening. So, I appreciate all your guys' hard work, really do. I think when there's not transparency and you say, hey, we're gonna have an 8% levy increase, and not knowing where the money's going, that's a harder sell. This is pretty, I don't think you can be any more transparent than this.
Dan's done a great job.
He's done a fantastic job. So,
Numbers are there, we just get them
how
out.
do you guys, how does the council feel about where you guys are at right now and moving forward, and an 8% increase?
Well, I think it's just flat right now. I think we can leave it because, as Dan has explained, if we go down, we're gonna have a higher jump in the next 2 years. If we have to have a steadier income or increase, it'll be a smaller hit for our residents. And for the way they've got it laid out before I got here with the plans for our infrastructure and our streets, I think that's worked out good. I mean, if we can't do a project this year for some reason, we'll have to postpone it, but if we can continue to do parts and pieces of stuff to continue to go, it's stuff that this city is in dire need of.
There's no question about it. It's always easy to build things.
Yep,
It's the
Very hard- It's
funds.
very hard to maintain things.
this is not fun,
Correct.
building's fun, maintaining isn't.
Correct.
So I look at it as 6.5% of the levy every year is just cost of doing business. Then what we put on top of that is what we try to get out of some of the other things we can do. So we're trying to keep that right around 2-3% is what we've been looking at trying to do. We had contracts were done, is it this year or last year? Time flies, last year. That was usually 3 years, right?
Yeah, so we'll be going into year number 2 of that contract in
Okay.
2026.
What contract?
For all our positions, our workers. So we have 5 unions, is it, Lee? Something like that? 5 unions that are part of it that we had to negotiate, and so that was done last year. I thought it was this year, it goes by so fast.
Okay.
So that's off the table until we have one, then we have to start thinking about it, 27, try to start working our way, figuring out. So, yeah.
I think the street plans are phenomenal the way they've got them every other year.
Yep.
And if we can do roads that are not with a lot of underground maintenance that needs to be done, that they get done like every other year, and just suggest or select which roads we're gonna do and keep it to a minimum cost and do what we can to upgrade the streets. Because there are certain streets that don't have much underground underneath them, like your sewer and that. Because if you got north-south streets, it got east and west, where the sewers and all that run into the north-south, you can just do the road tops. That'll last for a lot longer because they don't have to dig underneath there unless there's an absolute sewer break at the corner or something.
Yeah, we were at for pavement restoration, pavement number, we were at one of the, it was like 56, wasn't it, or something like that? It was really super poor. And what are we up to now, 70, I think you said, something
Yeah, I
like that?
think it's just about where it's at, yeah.
Yeah, so we come a long ways. When a couple of years ago, they did a pavement score, they go out, they look at the streets and they do all that stuff. We were at 56 and up out of 100. And then we've worked our way up to C level now. That's good.
That's great.
Speed up our game just because the road reconstruction projects, we weren't gaining
No.
the rating with the streets.
And we got rid of the assessments, property assessments, which as far as street assessments, I mean, for the, so, I mean, there's not that big bill. So they did that, the previous council got rid of that, and, it was kind of contentious, but it was gotten rid of, but there was no funds put towards doing it. So it was get rid of, but we didn't add. So we've added 1%, 1.5%, now 2.5%, I think we're up to now, I think, or something like that. So now where we should have done right from the beginning is, okay, we got rid of that, but we're putting in that. And there's a lot of older people. Dan told us, a lady called, an older couple, trying to figure out how much money they were gonna have to, over in Gerald, take out how much money out of their IRA to pay for the street assessment, and he told her nothing. I mean, that's for the age and for the income of a lot of our residents, that's a big deal. I was one of the last ones, and I'm over by the lake, and mine was $8,000 for the one house. So, I mean, not, if everybody can jump and you can keep it like we're doing it, then that works. And I know there was a lot of, when you mentioned, Dan, there was a lot of different cities suing because of the assessments, and it's got to be quite, that. So we got away, we didn't go back, and, but we're starting to put enough money away where we can do that and just share it with everybody. So that's helped.
I had come across, I think it's the city of Edina, and they're moving away from special assessments, so they're starting to ratchet up their levy to be able to hire that. I think they were saying they had something in what I was reading, that if they were to assess a property for the true costs of what it would be like $40,000 for each house. And the legal battle is that you have to prove, for cities, that you have to prove that parcel benefited by that amount of that special assessment. So
How many lawyers live in Edina?
So I mean,
That had to be quite a battle.
it's getting tougher and tougher. So there is some movement to moving over towards levying it versus having the special assessments. And I mean, it's one of those pieces that City Manager Frandle and City Council has talked about. Do you went away from it? Do you put it back in? And then there, some people feel like they've been the haves and have-nots. I was contributing to this. Now I have to pay again for something, and I may end up having an $8,000 to $10,000 bill. And if I don't pay it up front, which do I have the money to pay it up now? It's going to go on my property taxes, and I'm going to be charged an additional 6% interest on it. So it's a tough battle.
We
And
rip
so
the Band-Aid off, we just go
yeah,
forward.
and that's what our president here, our mayor, and the other big chamber has said, and that's what we're trying to do, is rip off the Band-Aid. Now, this 6% levy isn't going to continue forever and ever. Right now we're looking at, we probably got another about 8 to 9 years, and we should be at a good level of where we're at to be able to pay for things. And that was where this last workshop was very beneficial, is that we've done a good job of identifying our needs, by putting the capital improvement plans, seeing where we are from a financial standpoint and so forth. Then it's kind of like, okay, well, we now have to put like a cap on it. And so now we've put the cap on to it, and it means that, okay, we need to start prioritizing within that CIP. And we got to give our city council a lot of credit in that workshop, because they had to make some really tough decisions, and there were some that even I walked away from going, wow, that got ranked pretty low. And I can remember I was driving home and thinking about it, and some of it came to me and said, okay, yeah, I can see that. And the next day I had to sit down and kind of go through things, and then at the end of the day it was kind of like I looked at it and I said, doggone it, I think they got it right. But it was just kind of an initial shock to where things got ranked. But then when you look at it from a lot of different perspectives, I think City Council's done a fantastic job of guiding the city and making tough decisions. It's much easier to do a 0% levy for an elected official than it is to do an 8%.
Attaboy. Yes. All right, well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Just a couple other quick little notes. I know we're a little bit after now. We got a little bit late start with the weather, so I appreciate everybody with going through everything. Let's see if I get back to it.
Yeah, so we'll just do a just quick update from staff, a couple of items. I want to talk about the Pine Tree Center. So I still haven't heard officially I know it's in the process of getting the finances together, but it sounds like a guy that already owns kind of strip malls like that, a local person. You know, they have the two businesses in there now, the pizza factory and then the shop right next to that. Take care, Dan. And then it sounds like they may have a gas station lined up to go back in there again.
Really?
Yeah. And it sounds like there's a store that used to be a tanning bed place there that when they left, they just left everything there. So they might have somebody interested in opening that back up. So, and it sounds like he is interested in putting some money into the place and making it look a little better too. So, nice to see that come around. It's needed some work. I know Andrew's not here, but I just do want to tip our hat to him. Thank you for being on here. He had a lot of good input when he was here. I know he's a very busy man. We will be having a replacement member, and that's going to be Caesar. He will be at the next meeting come March, so I think he'll be a good addition to it.
Very good. And thanks, Andrew, for all you did.
Indeed. We talked about the community center. Just to give you guys just a quick update on the unfortunate incident of getting the coliform in our water supply, which comes from, you know, when you're doing these road reconstruction projects and you're putting in new water main, you know, you might have pipes that are sitting out in the yard for a year from the last project, and now they're brought out to the site and they sit there for a while, and you know, you get a leaf blown in there, you get some dirt blown in there that you didn't quite get all washed out, and that's when you can have this coliform. And thankfully, it's not the other form of like E. coli or something like that, because you'd have to have a boil water in place alert. You'd have to be on the news, but that's more for like feces getting in there, you know, animals, what have you. But it's quite amazing how the rumors start flying and people don't know, so they just start filling in the gaps. Talked to somebody that said, well, I knew they had that big hole open in the middle of the road and they were doing water and sewer, so the sewer must have got into the water. I said, no, that is not what happened. But yeah, so, but the good thing is, so we've been, we test water every other week and send it into a lab, make sure everything's safe already. It's now been a little over 2.5 weeks that we've been putting, chlorinating the water supply to take care of this bacteria. The test results this week have come back clean. They were negative. So we probably will, because in talking to the Department of Health, they've had that before. It's not terribly uncommon when you do these road reconstruction projects that this can happen. That you don't want to go and just until the first time you get a clean, you know, lab results, and then you quit, because it's still going to be little pockets here and there. So I'll be talking to the Public Works Director and going off of the direction of the Department of Health, but it'd be nice to see it in there for at least, you know, finish out a month anyway of it before taking that chlorination back out of it again. So
One of the things that the city crews are doing, they're filling up the water tanks on the water truck out there. They're reusing that water that's got the chlorination in it for flooding the hockey rinks. Reusing the water, so that's a good idea. They're not wasting it.
We'll see if they skate faster.
there you go. One last thing, just kind of plant the seed and get your guys' feedback. We're not looking for answers right now, but you know, what do we want to do moving forward? Right now we have the facade improvement program. We've had 2 applicants that have come through that have gotten funds for it. Sounds like we have one more that might be in the works that we're aware of. And the next one might be a larger one, so the way it's set up is you can get up to $20,000, which is half of what they spend. So if they spend 40 or more, then they can get that 20,000. We initially put $200,000 into this program. We haven't spent a lot of it. So I just wanted to bounce the idea off you guys. Do you want to expand this program? You know, do we, you know, start throwing in some kind of the mechanicals, heater, or, you know, AC for some of these businesses that are downtown too? I mean, certainly is a big hit when they have to replace it, so it is helping the businesses down there. Do you expand it that way to just incur other things? I mean, other ideas that were thrown out there, do you do a solar or something like that? I mean, that's probably not very practical, but, you know, just think about those things if we want to expand that. As you saw with going over the budget numbers, we're in a good place, you know, and if our funds stay up like that, you know, in the future, you may cut back the levy a little bit on that. But we've got the funds there, and it's just, it'd be good to help the businesses out in any way we can. So just certainly open for input on that, and
Yeah, we have been focusing on downtown. Is that still good as far as what you're considering as far as the business, just the downtown district? You still good with that?
I mean, that's the heart of the city.
We're right, yeah, we're right here.
Yep.
I was just wondering, what do we do with the VFW? You know, we had turned them down, and a while back, we had suggested to have them come back in and refile a different one or something. Now, actually, the sign that they've installed down there does look pretty good, but I realize that was not part of the facade. Is there anything else they could possibly do? You know, they wanted to put all that lighting up around the building. Is that something that would still be qualified to do this? I wonder if they've ever thought of putting a mural on the side of their wall as people come down the hill from the top of the hill. That'd be the first thing they see coming into the downtown, is a nice mural off the VFW also.
and that's one of those unique things. I mean, it would have to come back to the board and, you know, our input on just lining the upper ridge of the
Right.
that light just didn't quite fall into the way we
Right.
had the parameters set up. But yeah, you get something unique like that. I think that input needs to come back from the board.
And it is 50/50, so they need to put their money. So I'm sure they probably want to think, you know, what's best, how much money they have to spend to
Right.
get the 50%.
And, you know, the ones that are easy that, to go through are the practical ones. I mean, whether or not it's doors or windows. The one that might potentially be coming through is, might be a whole facade frontal redo, so that'd be nice. But that's up to the business owners on what they're willing to spend and what they're willing to do, so.
That large antique store, those windows between that and Sweetie's really look nice on there now.
Great.
And I think they've warmed the whole building up quite a bit.
Was like a new roof. Was that on one of the items that we would approve, or was that not?
Not in this stage, because it was more for the actual facade, stuff you could see from the street. But that's why we're having this conversation. We feel that we can benefit
just-
from that.
Do you need a
I'd
roof?
like to see the money used for infrastructure.
Right.
That's what I always go back to, but I mean, I'm open to having, I just think infrastructure is,
I'm a big fan of solid infrastructure all over across the board, so
Yeah.
I'm with you there.
Now, has Hillcrest Brake and Alignment contacted you guys yet?
It's a potential.
Yeah, he's a potential, yep.
Have you guys heard anything for permits or nothing? Not yet, but, yeah.
What would you consider the infrastructure? Cover it.
well, obviously the facade was,
Yep.
you know, more the exterior of the building and how it looked, you know, but, you know, if.
Like roofs you're talking, or different, what
That
would be considered?
infrastructure, yeah. You know, they're old, these buildings. Old. So that's why,
Yeah.
you know, infrastructure, you know, I think it's money wisely spent.
Oh, I think so
There's a
too.
return on the investment.
To keep the buildings up and at it. Yep.
Correct.
And that's the
We
carrot.
could talk about, I mean, you know, AC top units.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, we can get into those topics, you know.
Sure. It's a partnership. I mean, it's 50/50. You're going hand in hand
Exactly.
with the owner, the building.
Yeah.
How
Some
about
of
the,
those older buildings, I think, are really a huge part of their character. If we can support that and
Yeah.
keep those buildings That's our town.
It
Well,
is.
especially the old Ace, the bank right along this whole strip here where that, the senior center came in here. That's an important set of bricks along there, you know, and whether he needs a roof, who knows, you know?
But I think if we're, I mean, how do you, I know that there was a few businesses during this summer that, you know, got new HVAC units on the top. Do we,
Do like a rebate program, almost?
I mean, how do you move forward? You know, I think it'd be hard, yeah, exactly, a rebate, like, hey, we didn't consider this because people weren't taking advantage of the parameters that we had set up, just with the facade.
Yeah.
Here are the new parameters, I think we absolutely should reach out to them, just say,
The way
hey,
we work our rebate program is as long as they have their receipt in hand. I mean,
Exactly.
we Go back a year.
Yeah, and we,
And if it
And we're the
started this year, we'd
utilities.
probably just do it with the start of this year, because that's when our program was up and going.
absolutely, not 10
Yeah.
years ago.
Exactly, yeah.
Absolutely, but I know there were some, I would think we would want to honor that.
Go back to that business owner and say, here, this is what we could offer you.
Yeah. And I could tell you those commercial HVAC units, it's not gonna make, 10 grand ain't gonna make a big dent.
Yeah,
But they'll be happy with something.
yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean?
yeah.
It's like ours, what, 250K for
Oh,
on
yeah.
top of the.
I mean, they're 6 figures.
It's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, that's something where we want to be able to, because, you know, it's all the money. The bottom line is you got to pay for that to be able to do this, and, you know, it becomes part of it, so. Like I said, it's a partnership, and we're the utility too, so we want to encourage people to do the insulation, do
Yeah.
that type of infrastructure too, because it helps the bill and helps us, you know, as far as energy too.
You know, one thing I wanted to throw out there, you know, we made it at the minimum amount of $5,000. I mean, some of these businesses, their bottom line is pretty tight, and even dropping that down to half that, to $2,500, I mean, do you still have to spend that kind of, I mean, that's a big help to some of these smaller businesses down there if they are spending that. I just throw it out there.
So do 2,500 is the,
I think that would be helpful.
okay. So that they do 25, then 25 can go in up to 5
No,
grand.
it's not a 100% match, it's a half match, it's 50%.
That's what I'm saying.
Yes.
So if they did 25, and that'd be 5,000 altogether, or you're saying if they did 25, it would be, we would pitch in the half of that.
So really, the way it is now, that you would have to spend $10,000
I was gonna say, you
before
have to
we would
spend
even
10
give you
grand.
anything.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I'm saying, if we do half, 25 is, or do you want even
Yeah,
less?
so if now they can go down to, if they spend $5,000, we will be able to give them $2,500.
I like that idea,
Yeah, why not?
because, you know, that's it. I mean, if they're, you know, some people they're living tight, but if they can do that.
Because that could be a commercial window
Absolutely.
Yeah.
for them.
Or that new door that's been leaking forever.
Yeah.
Now, what kind of buildings are you looking at in downtown there that are in that type of a need? Now, is that Village Pizza, is that in the need of a lot of work in there? I guess I haven't been in there for a while.
That I don't know.
I can only assume it's been there forever.
Yep, I mean, you walk in and
Even the
you
barber
got your
shop.
poodle scoot on. But, you know, some of that's their character too.
Word out, we can get it in the newsletter,
Yeah.
I can go to the business association meeting and, you know,
Yeah,
go retro on a little bit of this.
I would like to see that go down. Like I said, that could be a door, which they've, you know, wanted to replace, that type of thing. So, I mean, we're still a partnership, we're still 50/50.
So just
Maybe that would help.
$10,000.
Correct.
Maybe that would help the VFW too.
If they had a qualifying
Hmm?
one, yeah. So I guess you could really spend a lot of time on this. If we're gonna widen it, I can't imagine it's anything, but we would still have to consider what we would spend that money on. I mean, if you're putting up Christmas decorations or a light that goes around top, is that still gonna qualify? You know, are we talking about infrastructure type stuff, or, well, I mean, signs aren't necessarily infrastructure, but, you know, we've talked about those. And I don't think we're gonna be able to name every single thing
Correct.
right here, but, something that could come back and talk to you guys about when we get the permits that come in.
You know, the biggest thing is that clock on the quarter bank here, that's still a eyesore, and someday I'd love to have that be back up to running.
Yeah.
Is anybody using that building right now or anything?
I don't think, or, no, is it the food place right next to it?
Yeah.
Next to it, yeah.
And the adult daycare is next to that. So they're using two of the three buildings, but the one in the corner with the clock is the one they're not using,
Yeah.
it seems like. At least not-
I don't know who owns that space. Is that clock has kind of been on my mind for years.
Oh, gosh, I drive in town, I think, oh, I wish it was
Is that
work.
something that we could just pay for if we didn't get involvement with the property owner? Is that something that the EDA could say, okay, it's a big enough, high enough profile improvement that we could just cover that, or?
I would wanna run that by the attorney.
Oh, forget that.
I don't think we could, I don't know how we could force.
Well, I'm not saying force
Yeah.
anyone, I'm
You
just
know.
saying,
Yeah, we just find out who owns that piece of
yeah.
building.
Yeah.
Must be that agent.
It's so high profile, I'd really love to see it.
Yeah.
I mean, you could do something really cool with that
Oh, yeah.
facade there.
Yeah, for sure.
It'd be cool if it was a nice fancy one up there.
Yeah, well, I know it's getting late and traffic's gonna be
Yeah.
terrible for everybody.
Yeah.
So I'd like to thank everybody, and I'd like to ask for adjournment at this time.
So moved.
So moved.
Second.
Second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, thanks again,
Thanks,
everybody.
guys.
Appreciate it. See you next year, brother. We'll see you before then. Let's go to lunch or something.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, brother.
Good to see you
You
guys.
too.
Yeah, I gotta pick up kids.
All right.
Al, see ya.
Good luck out there.